Alright, last time for chapter 1. So, this is the lecture about the themes that I've been looking at for your semester projects, right? So let me sort of go over that one more time, rehash kind of what I'm talking about. For your final project this semester, you're going to be doing the gender transgression project, but what you're going to be doing before that, as you go through this semester, is choosing a theme and following that theme throughout Fausto Sterling's book and throughout the Beaujolais novel that we're also reading. So the theme that you choose, you'll be writing on it every week on the discussion board, and you can write really heavily on it, or you can just mention it some weeks and show how it ties into what you've been reading and thinking and studying about. But for the most part, what you're trying to do with these end of the week discussion or end of the week event boards is to start early thinking about the final topic of your paper. So each week you should be building on what you learned the week before about a very specific theme. So without further ado, let me go ahead and give you the themes that I came up with, and I'll also post these as a list, probably as a comment to this video. So here are the 8 or 9 or 10 things that I came up with. So the first one is, they're all very broad concepts, and some of them are interrelated, some of them fall under one another, but you're welcome to take these approaches and really get very specific with them, and in fact I encourage you to, and you'll see why once I get going on the list, because they're so broad that were you to just take this really broad view, you would have a book rather than a small 10-page paper. So anyway, again, without further ado, the first one is feminism and bodies. For this theme, feminism and bodies, I would want you to sort of think about the way that the feminist movement, as it is alive today, is interacting with female bodies and male bodies and transgendered bodies and intersexual bodies. What is the actual body doing in feminism? How are feminists exploring it? What are scholars saying about it? What kind of investigations are they taking into it? So that's our first theme, feminism and bodies. Number 2 is gender continuum. I introduced this in the last lecture, and the concept of gender continuum basically embraces that both and idea that humans aren't really either or, but they're socialized to be either or. So that's kind of the argument behind gender continuum. And your first chapter gives you several readings that you might pick up during your research if you choose the idea of gender continuum or one subtopic underneath it. So that's the second one. Number 3 is gender constancy. I introduced this concept too in the last video, and what I mean by gender constancy is the idea or the notion that in our society, if a human is born with a vagina, breasts, and the ability to reproduce, then she should remain a woman her entire life and act as a woman would her entire life. And you see this even on more subtle levels, like with all of your friends. If you are typically a heterosexual white female who wears sundresses, and then one day you show up in a pair of overalls, something happens to your friends' reactions there. And that's kind of what this gender transgression project is about, is the break in that gender constancy. If you are an inconstant gender, if you sometimes are very femme and other times are very butch, and sometimes you act gay, and sometimes you act straight, if there's an inconstancy, people call you crazy. But there's nothing in our biology that suggests that we should be constant in those ways. And in other societies, people are inconstant in gender and sexuality. So that's number 3, gender constancy. The fourth one is a big, huge umbrella term, nature versus nurture. And that's also the idea of like biology versus sociology, or the innate body versus the conditioned body. So we talked about that a little bit already. The fifth is psychosomatic. Now that's introduced just a little bit in Fausto Sterling's first chapter, but I want to take this opportunity to talk about it just a second more. Psychosomatic, 2 words. Psycho obviously means what's going on in your head, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your thought processes, and then somatic, the soma, is the body. So psychosomatic is what's going on between the mind and the body. How are the mind and the body negotiating meaning? How are the mind and body together negotiating sex, gender, sexuality, sexual performance, sexual activities, gender activities, gender performance? So the psychosomatic, and you can take that in a very specific way, or you can take that more generally. What does it mean? What is that idea? How does the mind affect the body? And then on the other hand, how does the body affect the mind? Can the body change the mind? Can the way that you're constricted in your body actually constrict your mind? So those are some ideas in the psychosomatic category. I've lost track of numbers. So the next one is the intersection between race and gender. Some of you guys are probably already interested in exploring that. If you've taken introduction to African American classes or things, or Appalachian classes, you might have examined the intersection between race and gender. And then a subtopic of this is the intersection between race and sexuality. So how are certain races better or are more equipped to express their sexuality? How are they differently allowed to express their sexualities and genders? What kind of gender representation would work or pass in a white community, whereas it wouldn't work or pass in an Asian or another ethnicity community? And then closely related to that, the next topic is age and gender, or age and sexuality. So you can kind of see where you might take that idea. What does age have to do with it? What are we allowed to do at certain ages that we aren't allowed to do at other ages? Why is that? What kind of preconceived notions about age and gender exist that sort of constrict us into acting a certain way when we're at a certain age? And what liberties come with age? Those types of questions you might consider answering under the category, under the theme age and gender. So 3 more. These next 2 are a little bit connected. The first is the biological body, and by that I mean the body. If we could examine the body without any social conditioning, without any nurture at all, what would that body tell us that we're capable of as humans? What would that body tell us about the constructed notion of gender? What would the body tell us about constructed notions of sexuality and things like that? And then the next kind of semi-related theme is the social or cultural body. So under one of these themes, you would do a hardcore specific look at the biological body. Under another of these themes, you do a more specific look at the social or cultural body. How are we acculturated? What kinds of ways are gender and sexuality constructed by science, by medicine, by parents, by religion, etc. And then the final theme is the theme of introjection, and that's probably a word you haven't heard of unless you're from a psychology background. And I mean it a little bit more broadly than the very hardcore philosophical psychologists out there mean it. But you can Google this term, introjection, and what it basically means is the way that information passes in and out of our bodies or in and out of our minds, right? So how are we receiving information? What actually goes into creating the things that we think and the things that our bodies know about gender? And that gets a little bit more philosophical. It's definitely a psychological bend on all of this, like psychosomatic is a psychological bend on all of this. But the term introjection, if you're interested in the way that, like, the mind communicates with the body, or the body communicates with the mind, or the body communicates with the outside world, or accepts meaning or negotiates meaning with the outside world, then introjection might be an interesting topic, a theme for you to explore. So I've given you this list. Most of probably what you'd be thinking of as a specific theme fall under one of these larger themes. So when you go to identify your theme, you might first start with my umbrella theme, like feminism and bodies, and then give me more of a specific sub-theme or subcategory that you're thinking about pursuing this semester, and ending up with a gendered project or a gender transgression project that supports or interacts with your semester theme in some way. So I hope that's given you a little bit more of a clear idea as to what we're doing with those end of the week events boards. Those are supposed to be you always constantly engaging your mind on your specific theme. Every week you come back and check in with yourself. What have I learned about my theme? Maybe go back and read last week's and the weeks before that's postings on the events walls. How has my theme grown and developed? Has my mind changed about my theme? What did this week's reading say about my theme? What is my research saying? You might pull in outside research, like if you're reading an extra article or an extra chapter from a book this week about your theme. How is it corresponding to Fausto Sterling? How is it corresponding to Transistor Radio? How is it corresponding to what other people are saying about their themes? So the idea with these events boards is to really get, the end discussion boards, is to really get your theme out there and to really get your ideas starting to manifest about these themes, so that other people can come in and chirp in and say, yeah, you know, I was thinking about this, but my article that I read as an outside source also comments on your theme. So be trying to think about over the next couple of weeks helping each other develop themes so that we can raise the level of intellectuality each week as we go. So, running out of time. If you have any more questions about the theme, post it to the theme discussion board, the final project discussion board on our Facebook group.